皆さん、こんにちは。山癖洋二です。本名はね、香川博という形で仕事をしてるんですけど、出版社を経営している関係で、そういうペンネームを使ってますね。どちらでもいいんですけども、いつも海外の人のいろんな意見とか感想とかいろんなことが起きるたびにお話を伺ってます。で、その中で、今回ですね、ワールドカップあったじゃないですか。そして、日本が、勝ってドイツにね、で、これからいよいよ、今日は実はですね、日曜日ですけど、これからコスタリカ戦の前なんですが、ただね、ドイツの人たちって、今回ワールドカップ一体どう捉えてたんだろうというようなことも含めて、ちょっとドイツのね、私の友達の、三浦さんに、聞いてみたいと思うんですよね。そして、三浦マーカスさんはですね、元ドイツの、方で検事もやってらっしゃって、そして日本とのつながりも非常に深くて、いろいろとですね、日本人にドイツのこととかを、文化の違いとか、そういうものについて、いろいろと話してくださったりしてるんですよね。で、ぜひね、ドイツの方々がどう思ってるかっていうのを実際聞いてみましょう。じゃあ始めますね。はい、三浦さん。
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. And you?
Well, thank you. That's good. Just, I tell you, this World Cup was quite exciting for Japanese, but maybe
Yeah.
disappointment for German people.
Yeah, it was quite the disappointment. Many newspapers said it's very shameful and like a
Shameful.
disaster. Yeah.
Oh my God. Because basically, German team is really strong, still strong. So, expectation was Japan is just a tiny, small team. You can easily beat them down.
No, I think the problem was it was the first game of a new trainer, of a new coach, and it's the World Cup, so now it's going to be difficult to continue to the next round for Germany, and that's what people are afraid of, like last time at the World Cup.
Well, and today, I have a question
Yeah.
because, well, at the beginning of World Cup, of course, German team protested, Qatar,
That's
a
right.
kind of regarding for the human rights issue.
Yeah.
And particularly like a gay or transgender or whatever, so sexual preference,
Yeah.
Qatar is not flexible for that. And then there are many kind of issue about the gender issue.
Yeah.
So, quite visibly, German team are protesting it and still protesting it. And even if World Cup side, organization side say, don't do that because
Yeah.
sports is not related to any political issue. So I'm quite curious why German people are so, persistently protesting it.
Yeah. Well, as for the gender or sexual identity problem, I don't remember who it was, but some official from Qatar said, being gay is like a mental illness. So it's almost like being crazy. And yeah, that's what a lot of people didn't like. It's like a very, very old kind of thinking. And yeah, to protest against that, the German team wanted to have like the rainbow colors on their sleeves, but which is a symbol for, like LGBTQ plus and so on. And actually, the FIFA said was not, well, of course, Qatar didn't want that because in their country they have a different view of that, but it was actually the FIFA who said, no, don't do that. And because, as you said, this shouldn't be a political thing. And the FIFA also said, okay, if you still wear these colors, you might be disqualified.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's why, well, they didn't want to risk that, because sports is the most important thing at the World Cup. So they didn't wear any colors, but when they took the picture of the team, right, they covered their mouth as like a silent protest. Yeah, and it was not the only problem with gays and transsexual and so on, but also the working conditions in Qatar while building the stadiums. That was also a big problem which was brought up again and again in Germany. There's almost like a slave-like labor, and many people apparently died while building the stadiums. And yeah, then Germans thought, okay, this is not the kind of World Cup we want to have. And this should be fun, should be about, cultures getting together.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was kind of disappointing. And when the FIFA said this should not be political, so don't do that, they actually made it a political issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they actually, it was like the reverse of what they wanted to do. And now for many Germans, it's like a political decision whether to watch the World Cup or not. So some people say, okay, if you watch the World Cup, it means you are supporting this regime. And others say, well, I just want to watch soccer or football, and I don't care about the politics. And so this year, there's a lot less excitement about the World Cup in Germany, which is really strange because that's sports #1 in Germany.
But interesting thing is really even so-called, generally speaking, fanatic fan decided we will not watch the TV. And
Some, yeah.
because I understand, of course, I mean, human rights is really important, and everybody need to respect it, of course.
Yeah.
Now, but what makes German people go so far to show the protest?
I think it's one very important reason is our history. Like during the Second World War, during the Nazi time, there were really bad atrocities being committed by the Nazi regime, and up to this day, Germany feels the way that they need to atone for it and to, well, fight for human rights because that was such a terrible thing, and Germans, well, most Germans never want this to happen again. And I think that's why Germany also protests this kind of thing in the world. And I think one reason is also because, well, Germany is, I mean, it's not the most important country, but it's still a strong country. And if Germany says something, I think some other countries will listen, or at least it's going to be a topic in the EU. And the EU is pretty important now. And yeah, that's what some countries might think about. If the EU says, no, don't do that, then they might change them.
Particularly like a result of the election in Italy, or many kind of a risky situation like Hungary,
Yeah.
So that is why Germany wanted to take an initiative to unification of the EU based on the human rights issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that still everybody can agree upon in the EU, or at least most. I mean, in Italy, it's a more right-wing government right now, but still, I think they would not say, no, we are against human rights. So in Hungary, or sometimes in Poland, even, I don't know about that, but still, they would never openly say. I mean, even Russia doesn't openly say that we are against human rights. So.
How about that, because ironically, it was a game between German and Japanese, and both countries had experience of terrible past,
Yeah.
and World War II. Now, from German's point of view, why Japanese are so fanatically, cheering and kind of excited of this game without protesting it? Are there any comment about it?
I don't know what usual or regular German would think, because for most Germans, they know Japan, but they don't really know anything more about it. I mean, they know sushi and manga and sumo, but that's about it. But for people who know a little bit about Japan, I think it's for them, they are not so interested, I guess, in politics like the regular Japanese. And also as far as I know, in history class in schools, like the Second World War is not really taught like in depth. And some schools even skip it almost. It's like, yeah, okay, we don't have time for that. And whereas in Germany, not only in history class, also in social science and even in German class, when we read about books written by Jews or about this time, we learn about this time and what the bad things the government did back then in many, many subjects. So all Germans know what happened, and I think that's probably a different thing, that many Japanese probably don't really know what happened, or they just say, no, it didn't happen, we didn't do anything bad.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
Is there any related with not only Nazi German histories, but also East Germany, long time ago? It was a separated country, and inside the East Germany, there are a lot of human rights issue, maybe.
I think that's probably one reason, yeah. And I think at least for Germans, or maybe it's just our age, but I don't think it's so long ago. I mean, we still remember when it happened.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. It is one thing. I mean, there were prisons where people were kept just due to their political ideas, and people tried to flee to West Germany, and they were shot. And that's also something, of course,
I understand.
that Germans reminded them of the past. Yeah.
Well, and also there are other side of the argument, like a Qatar side or a FIFA side. Let's say, hey, human rights issue, that is another kind of a culture issue. I mean, Muslim country, they have their own culture. Don't infringe that kind of cultural value from the other people who does not know much about it. This kind of a statement or argument, how German people can reflect upon that.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's a valid argument. It's a different country, it's a different culture, and why should we tell them how to live? But I think for a lot of Germans, and not only Germans, maybe people in the EU and in the US as well, you can see it from the term human rights itself. So this is not something that's just about culture, it's about humanity. And we're all humans on this planet. So there are some very basic rights that every human should have, no matter where they live or or what gender they belong to, if they're poor or not. It's just like we are all humans, and that's why we should all be given those rights.
So that is why, I mean, human right is the most important, more than the kind of sports value or philosophy. That's a kind of a statement, which I saw in the.
Yeah. I also think, I mean, of course, we should be not like too pushy when talking about how to live or cultures, cultural differences. But if a country like Qatar or any country opens itself up to host a World Cup or any kind of event, then I think it stands to reason that they should also adapt to foreign standards. Yeah, a little bit, because we want to have this prestige, we want to have the media coverage, we want to have the money too, from people coming to our country. So I think they cannot just like, okay, we are doing it 100% our style. You have to accept it or just leave it.
I see. Okay. Now, Germany is now facing the severe winter and the energy and the inflation maybe. And of course, the tension between Russia and Germany created a big supply issue, right? Of the gas. And do you think like such kind of ideology of human rights, of course, in Ukraine, many human rights are infringed and kind of beaten down and there are a lot of problems. Do you think public opinion in Germany can sustain of this anti-human, how can I say, rights issue is really, you guys can continue to protest even if there are poverty or even if there are energy shortage?
Yeah, that's a good question actually. Of course, when it doesn't concern me, if I don't have any disadvantages, then it's really easy to protest something or to be against something. And as you said, this winter is we don't know. Maybe it's going to be cold or not, but now people have to heat. They use more energy. And a lot of electricity and heating is done by gas in Germany. And we had, I think it was 70 or 80% of our gas was from Russia.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's right. We really depended on Russian gas. So now we have to buy it from somewhere else. And it makes gas really expensive now. And yeah, it remains to be seen how many people will still protest it if they probably freeze at home or if they have to, give up a part of their quality of life. in order for some political idea? It's a good question, and I hope that we can continue to protest that, because it's just the first winter. It's not still. I mean, it has been going on for many months, but still quite short. It's the first winter, and maybe if we endure this winter, then next year the pressure on Russia is going to be even stronger, and they will do something to end this war. So I think in Europe, although the Ukraine is not a member of the EU, we should kind of like stick together, and we should not allow this kind of behavior from Russia or any state, because this is kind of connected to East Germany. After the Berlin Wall came down, basically I thought, okay, that there's never going to be any problem with the Soviet Union or Russia anymore, and I was hoping for a long peace in Europe, and I was actually pretty sad that we have a war in Europe in this day and age. And although I'm really far away there, but to put it into perspective for your viewers, from Germany to Ukraine, it's not really far away. It's about the shortest point's about 700 kilometers, so which is a little bit like from Tokyo to maybe Hiroshima. And yeah, so it's quite near actually. So this is not just like a theoretical problem. So what we did against that, what the government did for the people to be able to continue this protest, is they bought more gas. So the gas reserves are at 100% right now. We are at maximum capacity, and they are going to cover part of the costs for gas and electricity. And next year there's going to be a maximum price for electricity and gas. So of course the government has to take a very, very big loan to cover that. And a lot of people are going to say, well, for future generations, that's not very fair because they will have to pay it off now. But I think it's worth it for peace in Europe.
Maybe this is the last question, but I believe that to sustain the kind of same attitude, maybe it is tough if second year, third year. But are there any kind of a opinion gap between young and old who knows the kind of past, or are there any gap between right and left inside Germany, which created a serious kind of a, how can I say, clash inside the politics opinions?
I wouldn't say that there was a big clash. Like even quite left-wing parties who are usually like in favor of Russia. This, we don't support this war, and we don't support Putin in this case. And of course, right-wing parties are also against Russia usually, so they can't say like we are against. So all political parties are against this war. And so for them, it's kind of difficult to say like, oh, we should not protest it. Just the difference is in how strongly we should protest, and how much should Germany, pay. That's usually the biggest issue, because Germany is paying a lot for the EU, but also gets a lot from the EU. So that's what they never tell. But yeah, they said like, okay, we should not pay for this war, and Ukraine should try to deal with it themselves. But it's only a few people who do that. So I don't really think that there is a big clash. The problem or the clash within the government now is just like how to pay for that, for covering part of the gas price.
Yeah, in the United States, that is a kind of a big argument point of how to sustain the economy, and that reflects upon even the presidential campaign. But this is the real last question.
No.
Last question, but this is a real last question, because Miura-san, you have been in Japan, and you saw Japan as a kind of a German kind of cultural background, and then both countries very well. Now, having said that, do you have any opinion to Japanese about the human rights issue, particularly in terms of this kind of World Cup as well as in general life?
Well, as for this World Cup, I think personally, just by watching it, you don't support the government. So I think, yeah, all Japanese can enjoy watching the World Cup if they can, because the times are quite late usually. I think the next game for Germany is at midnight tonight. But I think, like, in general, it's yeah, I think it would be good to know your past a little bit more, the past of Japan. And one issue is, of course, like what happened in Korea or what happened in China too. And I mean, just by knowing it doesn't mean yeah, then people can make a decision themselves what they think of
Right,
that.
which means it doesn't mean you should apologize so many times or something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
But
that's
you
yeah,
think
that's true.
no.
And I think, like, in general,
Mm.
Japanese often like, okay, yeah, let's do eco-friendly activities or let's do some human rights activities, but it's only like very light and like a little bit light. What I mean, and not so strong. And what I mean by that is it's just as long as it's not bothersome. I think so. There's no strong political interest in
Yeah.
Japan, like in general, I think. And I think it's a cultural thing in Japan, because for many Japanese, you know, it's at first it's far away, and they don't know these people. And in Japan, if you don't know someone, you don't really care so much about that person, at least from my point of view.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Miura-san, thank you very much. It's quite an interesting comment and nice comment. Actually, I personally think that, you know, Japanese need to learn what is going on in the world and what is going on in the past, what
Yeah,
was going on in the past. Of course, it is important to consider themselves in the future.
yeah, true.
Interest against about the politics, it's really sad because, you know, Japanese are not interested in at all because something they gave up already.
Well, the thing is, I mean, Japan tries to be, I mean, Japan is an island, but the mindset doesn't have to be an island mindset. And in today we are all connected, so we should know a little bit about each
I
other.
totally agree with you. Okay, thank you so much for your time and the
Yeah,
nice.
thank you for having me. Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
bye-bye.
Bye.